Hello, I'm Paul Zammit, the Nancy Eaton Director of Horticulture at the Toronto Botanical Gardens, and I'm excited to share some of the wonderful gardens we'll be featuring on this year's tour. I'm here in one in particular that shows a very interesting situation. Particularly, there's quite a bit of shade, some hard terrain, and what I really love about this garden is all the textures. And that's one thing people who are dealing with shade gardens need to really focus on, is learn to work with textures, learn to work with foliage. And if you look around, there's a rich tapestry of different foliages, combining the bold with the fine lace. We see lots of things like hostas and all the different forms and shapes, things like ligularias, cimicifugas, and brunneras, some of my favorite plants for shaded locations. A few tips to keep in mind if you are developing a shaded garden and you are exploring the world of hostas: learn to look for slug-resistant or slug-tolerant hostas. Many of them, as they mature, develop very thick and leathery leaves, and these leaves over time become quite slug-resistant, and the slugs have difficulty feeding on them. It doesn't mean that they will totally leave them alone, but it doesn't reduce your hostas to just lace, as some of the older selections. So I encourage you to explore the world of foliage and texture, particularly for shade. The greens, the silvers, the burgundies, the golds, and the chartreuse. Let's have a look at some beautiful selections in this garden today. So here I am with one of the large growing hostas used as a specimen. This is one of the Siboldiana groups, may even possibly be Siboldiana elegans, known for its very large form and shape, wonderful powder blue color. I love when we get fresh rain droplets or from an irrigation system on the water, how it just beads. But note in this case here, we've got very, very bold texture, a nice blue-gray to help contrast or pick up on the stone in the backdrop. Again, one of the features of working with a shade garden. A nice big specimen plant. When you buy this plant in the garden center, you may buy it in a 1 or 2 gallon size pot. Be aware of its mature size and be sure to give it ample space in the garden. Two other favorite perennial selections of mine for bright shaded locations are the brunnera, in this case here Jack Frost, and cimicifuga here. Very large groups, lots of different selections in each. While I love the brunnera, I do love the soft little forget-me-not-like flowers in the spring, but more importantly, what follows after the flowers, and I recommend you give them a cut after they finish flowering, is this beautiful silver foliage which will last the entire season. That adds a nice color contrast and textural contrast to plants such as the cimicifuga here. Cimicifugas are fantastic for their burgundy foliage, lacy-like appearance, and the element of surprise that they give you in the fall when they bolt up and produce wonderful bottle brush fragrant flowers. Big specimen plants that can reach up to about 5 feet depending on conditions. Two fantastic perennial shade plants to look out for. Two other plants that I'd highly like to recommend for shade. We talked about hostas earlier, but using hostas that are chartreuse color to give you that pop of color. But one should also remember the importance of color echoing or color repetition. So we've got Alchemilla mollis here, and it produces wonderful serrated foliage, but then chartreuse flowers that will echo the hosta. And furthermore, in order to maximize in a shaded location, I do recommend interplanting some of the later perennials that emerge, such as the hostas, with early spring blooming bulbs, such as scilla, species tulips, or species narcissus. And in this case here, we can see the foliage of narcissus or daffodils that is the result after they flower, which will die back down and then be hid by the foliage of the hostas and the alchemilla.